Now you all have your own business, your builders, your HVAC installers, your solar store retailers. But as Nancy and I were putting this program together, we realized the importance of developing a base of knowledge and expertise, and if not expertise, certainly access to resources, so that you can have intelligent conversations with the prospects and the customers that are coming to you for advice. And while it may be about your particular niche, the spoils often go to that person who can be a real resource and an advocate. And so we thought it would be helpful to pull together a panel of people who have been there and done that, for people who really have the green credentials. They built a very successful business on their own right in this niche, and allow them to share a little bit of their story, some of the challenges that they experienced along the way, and how they go about winning in this game in a place that comes from authenticity, that is integrity for who they are, what they believe in, and also value for the people that they're doing business with. Okay, so Sean Jeffords, President of Beyond Green Construction, Chair of the Western Mass Green Consortium.
So I do recognize a lot of faces out in the crowd tonight, but I guess what I want to do is just, I'm supposed to frame the challenge, and with the diversity of the group here, I think one of the things that we can definitely say is a challenge for all of us is to try to take the situation that we're in right now, with environmental concerns and peak oil concerns, communities that are not as sustainable as they could be, and look to that as a way that we can rebuild our economy based on changing the way we do things. And that is going to require all of us to get behind. That's not just green building, that's not just energy efficiency, that's not just solar. That's everybody from all aspects, everybody that is involved with organizing, everybody that's involved with selling products, people that are involved with buying products, promoting, educating, advertising, marketing, doing the work itself. Really, we all have to be in it together, because coming from somebody that I really do understand the challenge, because it was probably, I've been in business 12 years now, and I originally started my company as a renovation company that I would work on a lot of historic buildings that were high-end. These people wanted it just so, a lot of historic replication, and they paid for comfort. So through the years, I started to educate myself on a level that peak oil was something that I understood but didn't understand as much as I did. I started to make the right connections with people and learn more about it. That was a disturbing thing. Global warming is obviously an issue as well. I've always been conservative, so it kind of all worked together where I decided I wanted to try to transform my business to focus on sustainability, green building. Now with that came the hardships of trying to sell products that people don't want, right? So this is a very difficult thing. Back in the 70s, we had our first big boom. Carter had a lot of programs in place that rewarded us for doing these things. But as soon as you pull the plug on incentives, how are we going to make it so that we can have this type of a work as a regular thing versus something that has to be subsidized? So with that, I can share with you the experiences of what it took for me and it's not something that, as of right now, I find this industry to be stable, because it's not. We have to go into this asking ourselves, what are we prepared to do to not only try to help our own businesses, but the businesses that surround us, the communities that we live in. So the biggest challenge that I see is for us to work together in a way that we promote this type of effort and we start to create demand for these type of products and services on a level that's going to be wide scale. So when you're learning these tools from this class, think about them in a way that you're going to say, okay, it's not just me, it's the people that's around me, because if my community around me fails, then I fail as well. So this is something that's important as we go through it. Now, green collar jobs, what are they? Sustainable jobs. Green is another term for sustainable. It's just a Reader's Digest condensed version. So with that, you got to be thinking about solar energy, alternative energy, energy efficiency, and all the related things. Are you guys familiar with the Recovery Through Retrofit report from Joe Biden?
No.
This report came from Joe Biden's office last October. It was a report that was put out to identify exactly what is preventing this market from catching and becoming real. Because I can tell you right now that for every job that we get, we have to put a ridiculous amount of work into educating the clients about what it is that they're actually purchasing. You know, you can, like I said, again, sell comfort. So there's these certain things that people are ready to buy, but as far as trying to make a business out of energy efficiency outside of the weatherization that takes place through utility programs, there's a lot of work to be done. And with that, we can look to these nationally recognized reports. There are 5 specific barriers that are identified in not only the Recovery Through Retrofit report, but the Getting to Zero report that was put out by Deval Patrick's office. So barrier number 1, information barrier. You don't know you need these products and services until you're educated. So there's a lack of reliable and consistent information that make it so people can make confident purchasing decisions. Without this reliable information, it's not going to take. It has to be something that's recognized in a way that people are comfortable. Not one person saying one thing, another person saying another thing, but real, transparent information that help people think. Information that comes from the homeowner, the consumer, the building owner, not from the contractor, because the contractor has a vested interest. So when we think about breaking down the information barrier, we have to do it in a way where we as a community are getting behind what type of information it is that we're trying to mobilize. By doing this, we're going to create an environment that is healthy for these green jobs that we're all training ourselves to do. So with that, requires a lot more than a marketing plan. Because a marketing plan is going to be around each and every one of our specific needs, which are all going to vary. So we need a community-based plan. This is something that is going to be an ongoing process. It isn't going to be quick. It isn't going to be easy. We have, through the Western Mass Green Consortium, we've taken on a project called Project Retrofit. In this Project Retrofit campaign, we are indeed trying to break down these 5 specific barriers. We had an event at the UMass Fine Arts Center in February. Almost 80 people came out, and we discussed in detail what type of information do consumers need to make confident purchasing decisions. What type of tools do contractors need in order to create trust with the consumers? These are important tools outside of your marketing plan that need to happen for our community. With that, we spent the whole day doing it, and we've started to create a report for barrier number 1. In this report, those people that were at the event are going to be recognized as people that contributed to this. This tool will be something that gets used throughout the community. It will end up in our legislators' offices. It will end up in the hands of lenders, attorneys, realtors, home inspectors, you name it. So what we're looking to do is, through the Western Mass Green Consortium, create a third party. Here's the information. No vested interest. This isn't coming from a contractor. Nancy asked me to mention the Northampton Breweries project because it's such a cool project with a great ending. Last January, the Northampton Brewery undertook a deep energy retrofit. $250,000 was proposed to be spent. That's a pretty hard nut to swallow. A year later, she's assumed $35,000 in energy efficiency savings. this stuff does work. We need transparency behind what we do. We need to measure what we're doing, how we're doing it. We've got to figure out how to do it better, and we've got to put it into a community-based website as well as other portals that allow to break down these barriers, because we want Janet to write a story about her project as well as all the other projects that we do. And we're going to ask other contractors to contribute to this so that when a homeowner wants to know more, they can go to this website or a variety of other websites, because we're going to give this information up for use. It's not something that we want to own. In order to break down this barrier, it's got to be something that the whole community has access to. So with that, people will be able to read up on stories, everything from basic weatherization work all the way to the more advanced stuff, including phased retrofits. Why was the project taken on? What was the first phone call? What was the process like? How much money was spent? How many jobs were created? What were the results? What type of improvements did you feel? You know, if you call for a problem because you've got mold in your house or a drafty room or a musty basement, these are the stories that people can relate to and say, wait a minute, that sounds just like my house. So they feel like, okay, that's just like having your, you know, when your neighbor and your other neighbor starts to do the work, all of a sudden it's okay to do the work. The good news about the internet is we can all be neighbors in that way. So these stories are going to try to break down the information barrier. With that, there's 4 other barriers. We've got a lot of work to do. That's the thing. But we're doing it, and we're going to continue to do it until it's done, because this isn't something we can take lightly. The next barrier is, okay, I get it. I've got to do the work. I understand it. It works. I want to do it. How am I going to pay for it? Funding mechanisms. That's the next barrier. Just because you want to do it doesn't mean you can. So we do not have access to the appropriate funding mechanisms that help us through this type of work, because our homes are not worth what they're mortgaged out to be. Inflation has beat us. We have serious problems in the housing market. Our economy has always been based on how well the housing market has been doing. So what we've got to do is come up with creative funding mechanisms that assist us in accomplishing this work. Let's just say, for instance, if Janet was not able to borrow that money, what would she have done, right? But she was able to borrow the money. Fortunately, she had good credit and was able to pursue the right sources. Now you look at the return on investment of a $250,000 investment with $35,000 in energy efficiency work every year. So because this is something that actually works, the numbers work, the appropriate mechanisms can be put into place, but we've got to invite the lenders to the table. We've got to get the attorneys to the table, the appraisers to the table, because right now we do not value energy efficiency work. There's no categories on their sheets to fill out how well insulated your home is. There's a lot of problems with that whole process, but there's options. PACE financing. We've got property assessed clean energy financing is financing that can flow through real estate taxes. This is something that will break down the funding barrier, but you got to get behind it. You got to call your legislators and let them know it's important. Green mortgages is an option. Zero net energy bonds is another option. Long and short, I've only got a couple of minutes left, but I will say that if anyone is interested in trying to take the tools that you learn from this program and get involved with a community-based movement that's going to continue to pursue the solutions to these barriers, I'd like to invite you to our next Project Retrofit event, which is called Brunching the Numbers. The Western Mass Green Consortium, that's great, I appreciate you bringing that up. What it is it's a C6 organization, which means that we can lobby. We get together every second Wednesday of the month at the Northampton Brewery, 4 p.m. What we do is we have networking from 4 to 4:30. 4:30 to 4:45 is inspirational news. People that are in the community, have businesses, organizations have an opportunity to say what's going on. You know, it's like a little soapbox to advertise. 4:45 to 5 p.m. Technology Minute, cutting edge technologies for 15 minutes. And then 5 to 6, members have an opportunity to present on their sustainable business practices. The consortium is set up in a way that you can attend these meetings for free. You can get involved financially and become a member. You can get involved with working groups, all sorts of great things. So we do our monthly meetings. We have sponsored projects. Our first sponsored project is Project Retrofit. And then we have all sorts of workshops and events. And we're trying to collaborate with other organizations like NESI, the HPA, and so on.
Well, I want to thank Sean for thinking in the big picture, because I feel the same way. I mean, we really have to educate people. I may have to vent a little bit here, because I feel like we're just so far behind in this country. Everyone I know that's gone to Europe or gone into India or gone to China and come back and said, they know way more than us. And the Europeans are way ahead of us. I just keep hearing that, and I go, my God, the media is killing us in this country. So we have to do it, obviously. So I'm right on board with you. And I think, yeah, I mean, well, I got into doing construction when my dad he wanted us to build a passive solar house back in 1980. So that's where I was convinced that was the way to go, realizing how well it worked. So I'm still an old school person who still believes in passive solar and putting mass in the house and all that, because I find that it really works. It takes everything to another level. And I tend to like to keep, like you do, to keep it simple. I try to build stuff that's really simple and really practical and can be done with conventional building materials and standard ways of doing stuff that you don't have to go through a bunch of hurdles to do, and try to keep the cost down that way. And what's really interesting, and I mean, what doesn't hurt for your business is to win a couple of awards, which we did for this little house in Montague over here, of course. So I get to see all these people that come through and look at it, and there's way more people tuned in to that level of concern about energy and interest in it than there used to be. Maybe it's a little niche still relative, but there's way more people interested in doing the energy thing, really. And for me, it's like, model what you can do without having to spend $1 million for your house. You know, do it, keep it simple, and show people a different way. Build a house that's the standard size that was, most of them were maybe, you know, from the post-World War II. Now the houses are so big. Why do people need to have such big houses? But anyway, what I find really challenging is how to go out there and educate people without sounding like Chicken Little, saying, the sky's falling, the sky's falling. We had this friend from Maine who came down this weekend, and she's a highly educated person. She's a therapist and whatnot. And my partner and I were talking about, we're in transition towns, Northampton, and talking about, you know, the peak oil and the whatnot. And she's like, just, it's backing her off. It's scaring her, you know. And so it seems like the real challenge in this whole education problem is to really put it only in the most positive light in terms of the actual richness that it's going to add. Just give it a really positive view of it. It doesn't have to be looked at it from fear. It can be looked, this is, you know, we really are entering a whole new paradigm of how we're going to live. It's really, we need to be planning for the energy descent. There's no question about it. And it has to happen on all levels, but it's not happening from the top. So it's trying to let people realize that this is actually a really incredibly exciting time to get on the bandwagon and really see it more than just their own economic well-being. You know, it's really kind of a cultural thing I think we have here, so it's against us. They're really looking at their pocket, not at the bigger picture. So if you can really bring the community aspect up into it on all levels, food production, everything, the Transition Town Initiative is a great model of really positive vision for an energy descent and doing it grassroots.
I'm sorry, what was the name of that model?
The Transition Towns, it's a European model. It's very big in Europe, and it's starting to catch on here, though it's more challenging because we're more individualistic here. Mm-hmm. They're much better at collaborating than we are, but that's what we need to learn. So I try to spin it in that way. You know, you're going to get to know your neighbors. There's going to be more going on. There's going to be much more of a social connection with your neighbors and this kind of stuff when I try to spin it. And then in terms of, you know, talking to people or promoting it, when I see young carpenters or the guys I work with or bump into, there's a lot of old timers here. You guys all saw the Graduate with Dustin Hoffman. Remember when the guy comes up to him after and he doesn't know what to do with his degree, you know, and the guy comes up and whispers to him, plastics.
Plastics, yeah.
Plastics.
Yeah.
Well, for me, it's like energy. It's like it's all about dealing with the energy crisis that we're going to be coming into, and the fact that we're not dealing with it very well yet. And so I send them to GCC or call CET, see what kind of work you can find in that, because that's where the jobs are going to be. I don't know if I have any big solution other than feeling like the big picture education is like the biggest key in the I also like to point out that Massachusetts is a big leader in renewable energy and whatnot. At the state level, Massachusetts is really a leader, and there's more and more incentives keep coming down, like the SREC system. The SREC system's coming in, so people who are going to be going into renewals are going to start to make money off their electricity. All this stuff that's happening in a positive, exciting kind of way. That's a good. Give them a bigger picture. So that's all I have for the moment.
Now that we've covered the bigger picture, maybe we'll just touch base briefly about some details, because one of the cool things about this type of work, let's say we do get it to catch, and it does catch. It's all about your technique, and this is hopefully what you're going to be able to continue to fine-tune. Points of entry, opportunities to do this work are not always going to be that somebody's calling you exactly for what it is that you offer, but that you're going to be able to take that opportunity and educate them into being able to make these kind of decisions. Things like, if we get to the building inspector's office and we start to put in pamphlets that describe as soon as a homeowner goes to re-side their home, you should be thinking about insulating on a level that's super insulation and things like that. And here are the results of projects that have done it. But a couple of projects that we've done, just for as far as opportunities are concerned, you can do these things even on new construction. This isn't necessarily a sustainable project in itself, but a 10,000 square foot McMansion. 5 years old. They've been struggling with their cooling equipment for those 5 years. Can't keep it below 78 degrees. Every HVAC technician in town, in the valley, trying to figure out why this cooling system can't cool this building. It's a chiller system. It's commercially grade equipment. So I get the phone call to go and try to help figure this out. And sure enough, the HVAC equipment is outside the thermal envelope. It's up in the 140-degree attic, and it's trying to provide cooling into a building while pushing the warm air through the ducts. Now with that, we offered energy efficiency work to go with it. We finished the project right before a heat wave. He was cooling all day, all night, and couldn't keep it below 78 degrees. We finished the project a few years ago, right before, it was the spring, right before a big heat wave. Actually, you know what? No, it was during a heat wave. Unfortunately for us, we had to be up there. That's the other thing about this work. The flip side is it's ugly to do the work. So as sexy as it is, it's hard work. So by the time we finished the efficiency work and dealing with the HVAC, spray foaming the ducts, and getting everything to be in the envelope, not only was the thermostat registered at 68 degrees, the setting was met, the AC shut off. So this stuff does work, and then now he's assuming around 1,200 gallons of savings in oil every year. And these projects can be done in phases. It doesn't have to be something where you're just all or nothing, these big massive zero energy projects. It can be done where when you get a phone call, the work that you're doing, do to the best of your ability. We get calls for old colonials with either mold problems or draftiness. Most of it's related to comfort. So that's one of the big things, is comfortability. We did a colonial that was $1,100 a month in propane fuel in the wintertime while being uncomfortable. Come to find out, the heating system was in the basement, forced hot air, only 13 years old. So it's not like it's just ancient equipment. Some of this stuff is techniques that are still being used. We dealt with that. We moved that up into the envelope, defined the basement to be outside the envelope, which kept the moisture out of the building as well. Come to find out, the property doesn't perk. The basement became a rain catchment system. So the heating system would disperse that moisture throughout the house and create mold problems. So the call wasn't for energy efficiency work, it was for health and safety. This is another point of opportunity. So we do the work in the basement and the attic. Now the utility bills are only $400 a month, and this is with single pane windows and walls that have not been touched. So the phased retrofit approach, she can continue to work towards these better savings. And again, just anything that you do, make sure that you're planning it in a way that it can be built upon, so that everything that gets touched is sequential.